33rd gene key, the final revelation. Programming partner, 19th gene key. Codon ring, the ring of trials, 12, 33, 56. Physiology, throat, thyroid. Amino acid, none. Terminator codon. The 33rd shadow, forgetting. The Maya of the Maya. Every time a human being takes an incarnation on this planet, there is only one thing they bring with them, their memories. We are not talking here about ordinary memories as we understand them. There are many types of memories. Except for exceptional cases, we do not retain memory of our past lives or of any existence before we are born. Yet even though we do not recall the before, we still carry the memory of it within the layers of our subtle body or aura. There are cultures upon this earth that have devoted entire fields of scientific and subjective research into the process of incarnation, of how we enter and leave the body. The Egyptians, the Tibetans, and the Chinese Taoists, to name a few, have left us reams of knowledge concerning these subjects. But perhaps the greatest and certainly the most ancient of these cultures is the Indian culture, specifically the great wisdom of the Vedas. The wisdom of the Vedas is attributed to the rishis, great teachers who attained liberation many eons ago and left us a set of profound maps and teachings that would assist us in attaining liberation and, in time, escape the so-called Maya, or world of illusion. One of the foundation stones of the Vedic tradition is the notion of karma, the idea that every act, thought, or intention carries a charge which in time creates a domino effect that returns to us at a later date. Most of us are familiar with this principle. Perhaps not so well known, however, is the doctrine of the sanskaras. The sanskaras are the specific memories that you carry from life to life, according to the karma you have taken on in this lifetime. These are actually far more than simple memories. They are charges of kinetic energy stored in the sheaths of your consciousness, which over time determine the shape of your life and your destiny. Sanskaras give rise to all human desires, which in turn create more sanskaras. Thus the ancients say you are caught in a wheel or a net of your own making, paradoxically unable to remember who you truly are because of the memories you keep creating. The 33rd shadow is the great shadow of our forgetting. As we saw with the 12th shadow and the 56th shadow, this is one of the three great tests we have to face in our evolution on this planet. The 33rd, the 12th, and the 56th shadows are all related genetically to the 3 stop codons in the human genome. Since it is your memories that keep you in the state of forgetting, your greatest challenge in life is to see through your own illusion and thus slip through the net itself. How then do we ever escape this mad paradoxical hall of mirrors when every desire we have serves only to tighten the net around us? Well, there is one desire that is the exception, the desire to remember yourself. This is the desire that the 33rd shadow conceals. The desire to escape the Maya begins your process of awakening and for the first time begins to unwind your sanskaras instead of feeding them. Your sanskaras are truly wound opportunities. They are like karmic wormholes that pull you toward certain people and push you away from others. The programming partner to the 33rd shadow is the 19th shadow of codependence. Thus, your relationships offer you the greatest opportunities to unwind the wound. The very word wound clearly indicates how we are bound by something that is literally wound around our genetic code. These deepest of memories, or sanskaras, are what give rise to your most challenging relationships in life. Codependence is about being energetically wound around someone else in a way that feels deeply uncomfortable and destructive. Even so, it is just such relationships that offer you the most direct way to pierce the veil of your forgetting. It is these difficult relationships in your life that eventually drive you to question yourself, your love, and the underlying reason for your life. To unlock the hidden secrets of your sanskaras, you must begin to fully face your own life and the pain that lies inside the various layers of your being. The 3 stop codons are genetic markers inside your physical DNA that, when activated, begin to unplug you from the illusory world of the outer senses. This codon ring is called the Ring of Trials for good reason. Every human awakening must arouse the hero or heroine inside you, and that inner being must face its mythical trials. It is only the intensity of your own dissatisfaction that has the capacity to jog your awareness out of the sleeping field of the Maya. It all begins here with the 33rd shadow, which seals the mass consciousness deep within the matrix of the senses. Despite many popular beliefs, the specific karma that you carry in your physical body has no direct connection to your past actions or your past lives. Your sanskaras are part of a collective energy field that is cleansed and reset each time you take an incarnation. To understand this mystery in depth, you can explore the 22nd gene key and its great mystical theme of redemption. To really understand how your sanskaras work, you have to contemplate your relationships in some depth. There are always certain people in your life to whom you are so strongly drawn that you sometimes feel you remember them from somewhere. This feeling of cellular memory between people is a sign of karmic bond, and all karmic bonds are formed from sanskaras. Such relationships are always intense and can be very challenging. They are love-hate relationships. When you enter deeply into such a relationship and stay committed to its process, you are courting the presence of grace. To accept the trial is to transform the codependent pattern of the relationship into a higher frequency, and this takes great love and surrender. There is no situation on earth that cannot be used as a means to raise your frequency and open your heart to your inner divinity. The 33rd shadow, therefore, governs all the endless cycles of existence and incarnation on this planet. It keeps you deeply asleep by concealing the past from you. Around the energetic and etheric boundaries of our planet lies a great veil called the Ring Pass Knot. The Ring Pass Knot is an energetic grid that connects the higher planes to the lower planes. Until the frequency passing through your DNA rises above the level of this great atmospheric veil, your true universal and eternal nature cannot be revealed to you. If you were to remember that you have lived this same old story in different nuances 1 billion times over, and that it still causes you the same suffering, you would immediately snap out of your age-old human patterns and transcend that suffering. The 33rd shadow keeps us hidden from this greater life. It keeps you in retreat here on this planet of suffering. It keeps humanity locked into these material forms until such time as your consciousness begins to spontaneously awaken of its own accord. The 33rd shadow ensures that we remain in the illusion that we are separate and alone, instead of being unified and all one. Repressive nature, reserved. These are extremely hidden people. They find it very difficult to communicate with others and often cannot break out of their own silence. They may have the experience of being forgotten by the world. Their natural tendency is to simply hide from people, and they usually find all kinds of ways to do this, in their work, through an enforced discipline or life choice, by living in isolation or far from others, or simply through a deep psychological insecurity that keeps them in a kind of torpor or numbness. These people find it very difficult to stay in relationships, since intimacy demands that they come out of their shell. When they do finally begin to awaken, they can surprise both themselves and others with how much wisdom they have absorbed over the course of their life or lives. Reactive nature, censorious. Rooted in anger, the reactive side of the 33rd shadow will express itself as an invasive behavior pattern that unconsciously tries to provoke reactions in others in order not to feel alone. The nature of this pattern is censorship. These people can be adept at understanding the emotional locks that keep others in a state of forgetting. Thus, they try to get attention by pointing out the negative patterns of others, sometimes under the guise of helping them. This almost always achieves the desired reaction, anger, from the other person. However, this way of getting attention is obviously extremely self-destructive and unsatisfying. It leads to a build-up in resentment and creates more anger until an inevitable explosion ensues. When these people learn to break their pattern of projecting their rage onto others, they finally begin to remember what it is like to love and be loved. The 33rd gift, mindfulness, the death of the ego. When you raise the frequency of the 33rd shadow to the 33rd gift, it becomes something rather magical, a quality called mindfulness. Mindfulness is a word often used in Buddhism, where it is understood as one of the great attributes of meditation. To be mindful means to be attentive, but it also suggests more than this. The person who displays the gift of mindfulness is someone who has loosened the grip of both extremes of the 33rd shadow. They are no longer held captive by their own unconscious desires, fears, and reactions. At the level of mindfulness, they may still hide or react, but now they can see themselves doing it. Once the process of self-remembering has begun, in a certain sense you enter a kind of purgatory. At least when you were asleep in the shadow frequency, you were ignorant of your sanskaras and the cause and extent of your own suffering. Now, however, you begin to see the very patterns that cause your own suffering, and the more mindful you become, the more pain and futility you encounter. After a certain time, however, mindfulness begins to transform the kinetic energy within your own sanskaras, and a new view of life opens up before you. It is also through mindfulness that you discover how to refine and purify your nature so that you no longer create negative karma. This process of purification is an integral part of the loosening of your sanskaras, and it can be hugely accelerated through working within your relationships. Through the ring of trials, you learn how to discriminate, the 12th gift, between that which keeps you trapped and that which brings you freedom, and you do this by moderating your thoughts, feelings, speech, and actions. Similarly, through the other allied stop codon, the 56th gift of enrichment, you see how easily you are distracted away from your true nature by your senses. Thus, you begin to be drawn towards experiences that enrich your spirit rather than experiences and addictions that simply stimulate or overstimulate your senses. Mindfulness, as such, is a very enriching process. The karma inside your very DNA is systematically transformed back into pure essence. This essence, in turn, is so wonderful that you find yourself wanting to experience more of it. You have found the secret of all human desire. Once it is purified into its natural state of divine longing, it becomes the very fuel that returns you to your true center of being. In Buddhism, there is a well-known meditation technique called vipassana. Although it can be translated in many ways, it points towards a witnessing self-awareness. In one sense, every one of the 64 gifts is a type of vipassana, a self-witnessing that is a prelude to the shaking off of the negative patterns of your own shadows. True transcendence only occurs at the level of the siddhi, but the bridge to these higher levels is the myriad of techniques and themes of the 64 gifts. At the gift frequency, technique is still extremely valid, which is why meditation or contemplation is so helpful. For most people, it is the gift that is the most accessible route to the higher dimensions. In fact, you might say that the shadow is the seed, the gift is the flower, and the siddhi is the fruit. One step automatically leads to the next step. Mindfulness is not really a technique, although it can be in the beginning. Mindfulness is the organic flowering of self-awareness or self-remembering. As you awaken within the Maya, the gift of mindfulness springs up from within you as a natural aspect of your nature. As soon as you begin to witness your karmic patterns in action, your sanskaras begin to unwind. To be mindful means to catch yourself in the middle of a heated argument and to realize that you have forgotten your true nature. In effect, it is to see your own victimhood. As you begin to see through these unconscious tendencies that have driven your nature for so long, a new awareness develops within you. It is important to understand that at the frequency level of the gifts, you are not yet free from your patterns, but you are engaged in a process that is progressively weakening them. It is at this level that another interesting phenomenon occurs. The closer you come to the siddhic quantum leap, the more challenging and intense your patterns appear to become. They are not in fact becoming any harder, but you are becoming more and more aware that you are asleep, which in turn makes you feel more and more uncomfortable. However, since you have also learned by now that you are unable to do anything to speed up your awakening, you start to witness your illusion beginning to crack around the edges. This is what the mystics refer to as the death of the ego. Your mindfulness is the only thing that you can rely upon at this stage, and eventually even that too will have to dissolve. Interestingly enough, mindfulness is the prerequisite for genius. The gift level is the level of your genius. When you can objectively view your thoughts, your feelings, your passions and desires, your own subjectivity, only then can you create art from them. If you are a scientific genius, you need to be able to think with your feelings or feel with your thoughts. This is how genius emerges into the world. It is witnessed. This is also why many geniuses are uninterested in recognition. They know they did not create their genius. It only happens when you are not there. Genius is a state of consciousness, a certain stage in the raising of our frequency. True mindfulness occurs when you become aware that something else is beginning to look through your eyes, think through your mind, and live through your actions. This something else, whether we call it genius, meditation, or prayer, is the larger reality remembering itself through us. The 33rd Siddhi, Revelation, Divine Closure. The three great states of human awakening are captured here within the ring of trials and the three stop codons in your DNA. The first stage, represented by this 33rd shadow of forgetting, is the realization that you are in hell, or in the words of the Buddha's first noble truth, all life is suffering. The second stage, represented by the 56th shadow of distraction, is the process through which your suffering is gradually transcended. The third and final stage, represented by the 12th shadow of vanity, is the confrontation with the true nature of self. As you rise into higher and purer frequencies, the secrets of the higher realms are released sporadically into your lower nature, and over time, your physical DNA begins to mutate to accommodate these higher frequency wavelengths. Once your DNA has mutated to a sufficient degree to handle these higher frequencies permanently, it is ready to receive the full force of the Siddhic realms. When the 33rd Siddhi dawns, all that you were is forgotten, and all that you could be is remembered. The fullness of the Siddhic state causes time to disintegrate and memory along with it. It is not that you lose your physical memory. Rather, your mind can no longer interfere with the purity of consciousness, which flushes the sanskaras out of your whole being. With no direct connection to the past or future, there is now only infinite time, a concept that cannot possibly be grasped in words. Revelation is a flood. Since the beginning of human culture, there have been beliefs and myths that once, long ago, a civilization existed, a golden age, in which utter harmony ruled and there was peace upon earth. Those same myths also relate that when this age came to an end, humanity forgot how to love and be in harmony with life. Thus our existence was erased by a great deluge or flood that swept the world clean, leaving but a handful of survivors. Mythology holds many hidden secrets. Above all else, such myths conceal the hidden codes of life in pictorial form. Every myth has arisen directly out of the human genetic code, which contains all mysteries in its primal links. This is why the great sages have guided us to look within ourselves for the kingdom of heaven. The myth of the flood or deluge, whether partially based on historical fact or not, is a deep symbol within the human psyche, the symbol of revelation. After the flood, there is always a sign, a dove, a rainbow, the symbol of a new world. The flood itself is a memory of our own future. Its existence testifies that we will each one day be washed clean by the overwhelming tsunami of consciousness, and that your existence as a separate individualized creature will one day end. Thus, revelation brings an end to endings. It ends all myths. It ends evolution, and it ends humanity. When revelation comes, the universe itself will disappear. You cannot really say that a new world will appear out of the old one, because time itself will dissolve. Therefore, all words, thoughts, and symbols will also disappear, since they depend upon time for their existence. Out of revelation comes true silence. The beings manifesting this siddhi have nothing whatsoever to say, and if they do speak, it is to say that there is nothing whatsoever to say. There are many amusing ways to say this. Of course, this siddhi is also about remembering. It is literally, as the word suggests, remembering, to enter into all the separate members of your greater body until you realize there is only one of everything. True remembering is a kind of detonation inside you, a flash flood that wipes out your past and reveals the greatest mystery of all, the mystery of the eternal now. Apart from the obvious enlightenment that comes with every siddhic state of consciousness, there are other natural manifestations of this siddhi. The one who is swept away by the 33rd siddhi also brings a sense of closure to the world. The presence of this siddhi in the world signifies the end of an era or epoch. True revelations always emerge at natural end times in human history, and they often leave behind strange-sounding prophecies about the next age. This siddhi is also known as a great revealer of hidden secrets. It releases unique secrets through its vehicles into the collective consciousness. Because of its unusual status in this regard, it can also be said to have an archetypal connection to evolutions beyond human consciousness, such as the angelic kingdoms. Every stop codon in your DNA precedes a start codon of another strand of interlinked code. Even though we may talk of evolution coming to an end, there are kingdoms that exist beyond our concept of evolution. The 33rd siddhi is an access portal to these higher and wider realities that begin where you, the human being, come to an end. Whenever we discuss the siddhic consciousness, we find ourselves in a world riddled with paradox. From the point of view of the ultimate, there is no world, no evolution, and no point of view. However, the human vehicles that awaken to the siddhic level always release something unique into the collective consciousness of humanity before they die, and this something always contributes to the evolution of human consciousness. In other words, even though the story has ended for such beings, their awakening fits into and contributes to the story of humanity. They too are players in the great drama, and they must play their roles before they leave, even though they know there is no one to leave and nowhere to go. This is the testament of the 64 siddhis. Each siddhi is still a limited expression of the infinite. The 33rd siddhi actually reveals the individual and collective mythology of enlightenment. Enlightenment itself evolves. Even though the state remains absolute, the means by which humanity awakens as a totality has its own storyline within the Maya. By opening us up to higher realities and angelic frequencies that lie beyond our physical DNA, the 33rd siddhi accelerates the evolution of human consciousness. This is such a paradox because the siddhic consciousness knows that higher consciousness and even notions such as frequency are themselves illusion. Human DNA does have miraculous qualities hidden inside that are activated by the siddhic frequencies, but it also has its limitations. Other vehicles exist beyond the binary code of DNA, and they exist in higher dimensions, in what we call the subtle bodies. Thus, the great cosmic drama unfolds, and every individual moves through progressive revelations before arriving at the ultimate revelation. The consciousness within form always has a storyline to follow. The trick is to fall in love with your own story and follow it without holding anything back. Two things are then assured. Firstly, you will arrive at the story's end, and secondly, your own story will be utterly unique and unlike anyone else's. This is why it can be so distracting for you to hear someone else's story about how they attained an enlightened state, or what disciplines or teachings they followed in order to reach that state. The truth is that nothing you do or don't do changes when and how you reach the ultimate. You simply have to have faith in your own storyline. This is also why it is so rare for humans to attain these states. There is no one to follow. The path is virgin and wild, and when your revelation finally dawns, it does so without your even being there.